How's everyone doing this Saturday, a day after the big lifetime ban of US President Trump from Twitter? So Twitter has taken the nuclear option and they've decided to ban Trump for life. And now we know once and for all that the United States is run by an oligarch class. The politicians that people vote for are in the pocket of that oligarch class, but before we may have thought that the lobbyists kind of grease the wheels of government. No, the lobbyists, the oligarchs, the bankers, they are the wheels. And they're the car, and they're the engine, and they're pretty much everything that runs the United States. The curtain has been pulled back, and we are seeing a private company actually ban a president of the United States. Doesn't matter if he has 4 years or if he has one day. They've banned a president of the United States. And I'm sure you've all seen the tweet. Doesn't make any sense why they would ban him for that tweet, but they were going to do it anyway. Trump could have tweeted, "Hello world," and they would have said, "That's against our terms," and they would have removed him for life. And they're removing everyone around him. They removed Powell, Wood, Flynn, everyone. They're going after everybody in the Trump circle. And we also have that they're going after Parler as well, and they want to erase the competition as well. So Parler has been taken off of the Google App Store, and Apple has given them 24 hours to get their app in line with Apple's desired terms, or else they're going to remove them from the Apple Store as well. So a few things to say here. Look, this was inevitable. I've now come to the conclusion that no matter what happened in DC, whether it was peaceful, whether it was not, whether there was a gathering or not, whether it was 5 people or 5 million people, what happened with Trump's deplatforming and what's happening now with the purge was going to happen. What's happening with the swamp consolidating its power was going to happen. All they needed was the excuse. And that excuse would have come in one form or another. They would have manufactured it one way or another. It doesn't matter what really happened in DC. This is my opinion. It wouldn't have mattered. It really would not have mattered. They were going to find some excuse, or they were going to find some way so that they could justify what they are doing right now. I was reading an Off Guardian article where they state that the swamp and the Biden campaign, the Biden team, Pelosi, the Democrats, they've had a bill in place. They've had the framework for legislation in place for domestic terrorism since September. I believe that's what the article said, since September. So they've had, all of this has been in place, guys. Domestic terrorism is the next hot thing. That's what they've all been fed now. That's the script that Don Lemon's been handed. That's the script that Cuomo's been handed, Rachel Maddow, the New York Times, the Washington Post. They've all been handed the script, domestic terrorism. And that's what they're going to go with. And domestic terrorism is just going to be an extension of the curbing of rights that happened after 9/11. But it's going to be a lot more drastic because it is domestic. So they're going to hit at anyone within the United States that dares to dissent from the authoritarian line, the authoritarian dogma and dictate. And everything that they've been saying for the past 3-4 years, that Trump is a totalitarian, that Trump is an authoritarian, all this stuff that they've been saying, as I've always said on many videos, has been pure projection. In other words, evil always hints at what they're going to do. Evil can never bottle it up and keep it quiet. It always has to reveal itself. And so projection is the way this is all being revealed. And now that they're talking about what happened in DC as being some sort of insurrection or coup, once again, is projection. They're basically saying that what you're seeing right now with the deplatforming and the purging of all the voices on big tech and everything else they're going to do, because this is going to stretch past big tech. Everything else that they're going to do is the real coup that's taking place. It was big tech that meddled in the elections, not the Russians, not the Chinese, not the Venezuelans. None of that, guys. None of that. I know what people think. It was really big tech. Let's be honest. It was big tech. This was the coup that they have been talking about for so long. This is the coup that they're talking about right now. This is the insurrection that they're talking about. Not Trump, not Trump supporters. They're not the insurrection. This is the insurrection. It's taking place now, and it's going to run its course for the next 3 to 6 months, however long this is going to take. So yeah, it's bad. It is bad, but I think it was inevitable. No matter what happened in DC, this was going to happen one way or another. Now, Trump and the Trump White House should have gotten on big tech. They had 4 years, they didn't do it. And now I realize why they didn't do it. I know why the Republicans and the Democrats didn't do it. I know why the Republicans, when they had the House and the Senate, didn't do it. Even though, let's not forget, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they were banning Milo, they banned Alex Jones, all kinds of people. But they didn't do anything about it. So all of this was taking place and it was starting. And the reason that they didn't do anything about it is because I believe that Trump, like every other human being in the world, was addicted to his Twitter. He loved his Twitter. He didn't want to give it up. He didn't want to go to an alternative platform. He didn't want to rebuild his audience. He didn't want to relearn another service. I believe that. I believe that Trump, one of Trump's greatest qualities is that he's very human. And in this sense, I believe that he was addicted to his Twitter, as these social networks are designed to be. They're designed to make you addicted. And Trump was addicted to it. It was his way of speaking to his base. And he didn't want to change that. So that's what prevented him from going after big tech. And Twitter is an easy one to go after. The minute Trump leaves Twitter, it's over. So let me just say this. Twitter is done. This is some of the good news. Twitter is finished. It's finished. How many people know the show 2.5 Men? 2.5 Men was the #1 show for a long time. And it was the #1 show because of Charlie Sheen, right? But the minute there was trouble on the set and everyone decided we got to get Charlie Sheen out, for whatever reasons, for various reasons, they brought in Ashton Kutcher, and the show completely just declined. It was a bomb. I mean, you've seen it in TV shows over and over again. When the main character leaves, they bring in someone new to replace him. The Office is another one, Michael Scott. They got rid of Michael Scott, Steve Carell, and the show completely fell apart. This is what's going to happen to Twitter. Twitter is, as Joe Biden would say, a one-horse pony. Twitter is a one-horse pony, right? You guys know what I mean and what I'm referencing. It's not going to last. 98% of all the activity on Twitter was simply to either talk about Trump, to complain about Trump, to whine about Trump. That was all of it. To report on Trump, all of it. So Twitter is done. They've gotten rid of their star. If Twitter was a TV show, a series that was running, they've just gotten rid of their star. And now they're finished. And Twitter wasn't that big to begin with. It seems big because people embed the tweets everywhere and you see it all over the internet. But as a platform, it doesn't have that big a user base. Something like 300 million. That's it. That's all Twitter has. So Twitter's toast. Facebook's going to follow now. Facebook will follow. They've made changes to WhatsApp, where they're going to just collect all kinds of data from WhatsApp. Facebook, if they hadn't purchased Instagram, they would have already been in big trouble. But Facebook will follow soon after that. Google will stick around because Google actually has services that provide actual value. And I also think Google's a little bit of a better managed company because out of all the big tech companies, Twitter is probably the worst managed. Facebook comes in second. And Google's probably the best managed. And that's not saying a lot, guys, but Google will last. YouTube so far hasn't done anything yet. They're going to, but so far they've taken a little bit more of a restrained approach. We'll see how that holds up. I'm expecting them to purge as well, but we'll see how that holds up with YouTube as well. But Google has always been a little bit of a better run company. It has its shit together. Twitter's run by children. We know that, and you've seen Dorsey. You understand what he's like. He's way in over his head. So the good news is that Twitter's done. Here's some other good news. The app stores are done. The app stores are finished. Guys, Gab has shown us the way. People who don't understand what Gab has done, they really should study it, because Gab was kicked off of everything. So what did Gab do? They're not dependent on the app stores. They created a web progressive app. WPA, web progressive app. That is the future. I'm going to do videos about this, guys. I'm going to do all kinds of videos on the censorship and on the tech and how we can all get away from this stuff. But Gab did a web progressive app. They're not dependent on the app stores, even though when you access Gab via the browsers, via the mobile browser, it acts 100% like an app. It's just not in the app store. And it's even better. You don't have to download anything. You don't have to download updates, none of that stuff. You still get notifications. You can still access your camera and your video, all those things. It's still fast like an app. It looks like an app. It's just not dependent on the app stores. It's accessed through the browsers. So what Parler needs to do right now, ASAP, Parler, if you're listening, if someone knows someone at Parler, send them this video. Parler, you need to create a web progressive app right now. Don't communicate with Google. Don't bother with Apple. Just don't bother. Create a web progressive app and get people to understand how it works. You can access Parler. This is what you're going to say. You can access Parler via your mobile web browser, add it to your home screen. You're done. No app stores, nothing. So that's also good news. Once you have Gab, once you have Parler, once you have other sites, ignoring the app store altogether and just building a web progressive app via the mobile browser, the app stores are done. That's it. So we've taken a huge step towards tearing down a walled garden, which was the app stores. The app stores were bullshit. The app stores are not about the internet at all. The app stores have nothing to do with the internet. Now we're going to finally get back to the internet, which is great news. The bad news is that the US is sinking. The bad news is that the US is heading towards an oligarch-run, authoritarian type of system. I don't know what it's going to be. I mean, this is very much what we're seeing is almost like a technology Bolshevik revolution in a way. It's really bizarre, but it is what we're seeing. So we're seeing a tech-based Bolshevik revolution. And it's going to get bad, but I think it'll get better if certain people make the right moves. So I think if Trump gets onto some alt tech and finally learns to break away from this addiction he has with Twitter, that'll be good. I think if Parler makes some moves to build on the mobile browser, that'll be good. I think if me and you start to go to alt tech sites like BitChute, like Odyssey, Minds, Gab, Parler, Rumble, that'll be good. There's 75 million people in the US and God knows how many millions abroad. Is it a little bit of a pain in the ass to learn a new service? Yeah, it is. But once you get used to it, you never go back. I don't download apps anymore, guys. The only apps I download are apps that are very labor intensive. Like they need a lot to run, which is how your computer works. Most of the stuff you do through your web browser. But if you need to download a Photoshop or video editing, okay, you'll download the software. That's how I kind of use my mobile phone now. Everything I do through the web browser. I don't bother with downloading apps. I don't do any app updates, none of that stuff. So, Twitter struck a big blow to Trump. They won a big battle and they're very happy. And the swamp is very happy. And they're going to go after Trump hard, and they're going to try to, I have no doubt they're going to try to arrest him. They're going to try to indict him. It's not going to end. So we're going to see what Trump is made of. And we're going to see what the Trump family, because it's not just Trump, it's his family. We're going to see what they're made of, and if they can stick together, and if the close people around him can stick together. As far as everyone else getting deplatformed or getting banned, I don't know what's going to happen. I'll speak for the Duran. We're not going to post any more updates on Facebook or Twitter, so you're not going to see anything there anymore, guys. We're just going to stop posting stuff there. We're not going to delete it. We'll just let it kind of just sit there as a placeholder. YouTube, look, we cover geopolitics. We cover a lot of different topics, from Europe to what's going on in Europe, to what's going on in Asia, to what's going on in the US, Canada, Australia. We cover a lot of different countries: Greece, Turkey, Armenia, Russia, all kinds. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not worried, because in a way we're moving back towards a free internet again. This was inevitable. This was inevitable. They were going to do this no matter what. And in the end, it's somehow it'll work out. Things are going to be very hard. Things are going to be very difficult. And for everyone living in the US, I can tell you right now, as someone that lives in Europe, and we have a kind of quasi authoritarian type of structure here. In other words, the people that rule over us are living in Brussels at the EU headquarters. No one even knows them. No one sees them, nothing. And they make all the policy and all the rules for us. Our presidents and our prime ministers are just, they're governors, they're figureheads. They don't really run the country. So living like that is bad, but you get by. I think the US will be worse. I think they're going to crack down on the American patriots hard. Remember, domestic terrorism, that's going to be the catchword, the catchphrase. That's what they're going to use now. And it's going to be rough. But, America will get through this. And I think it'll be a freer place after this. I don't know when that'll be, guys. I really don't. I don't know if it'll be 6 months or 6 years, to be honest. But the internet will adjust quickly. The internet will adjust quickly. We also have crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum. There are places to go, and there are services to use that are independent of big tech. And those independent places are going to get stronger. So this has been a little longer than I wanted it to run, and I really didn't have much structure. I'm just kind of ranting what's off the top of my head, but I wanted to do a video on everything that's happened. And, what can you say? This was meant to be. This was meant to be, and I don't think we would have been able to change the course of things. This is how it's got to be, so we need to trust in God's plan, not Trump's. We need to stop saying that. We need to trust in God's plan and see where it takes us. And just get on other platforms, guys. Pitch in. Do whatever you can to help and pitch in. There's 75, 80 million people in the U.S. and God knows how many people there are in the world. So together, if everyone works together and communicates together, then this is a very powerful force, and everything will be all right. At least I hope. All right, guys, that's the video. It's sad. It's sad and it's worrying, but we'll continue to do what we do, and you guys continue to do what you do. Take care.